The world's greatest scientists and brightest minds were placed in cryogenic sleep inside a specially built underground bunker for 10,000 years, so they could one day awaken and help rebuild civilization after a global catastrophe. Horrifying footage of fires and explosions floods the news. At a press conference, the President of the United States announces the launch of the final and most ambitious project yet, its goal, to protect every citizen from the looming catastrophe. But reporters are deeply alarmed. They've received intel that engineers and scientists are being quietly taken, at night, to a secret underground facility. This can only mean one thing. The government has already made its decision. They'll survive. The rest won't. Deep beneath the surface, in one of the bunkers, a man begins to awaken from cryogenic sleep. Climbing out of his pod and slowly regaining his senses, he surveys the control panels and computer systems, then heads off to wake his partner. But his partner is already awake, pleading to be released from his capsule. Once free, the man complains that his own sleep cycle was longer than his colleagues. Shaking off the last traces of grogginess, he walks over to the computers, runs a systems check, logs in to confirm they're both alive, and checks the air quality on the surface. The results are disappointing. Just like in previous cycles, the air is still toxic. As they review the list of tasks scheduled for this brief wake-up period, one of them, an engineer, notices seismic activity near the surface. That's a very bad sign, but Bauer brushes it off. If the quake had truly damaged the bunker, they'd already be dead. Toxic air would have seeped in and killed them while they slept. They divide the tasks and get to work. They only have 2 hours before the cycle ends, and 20 minutes are already gone. After a brief pause, the man steps toward the board covered with photographs. Suddenly, a woman's voice breaks the silence from behind him. Turning around, he sees a young woman smiling softly. She tells him he appeared in her dreams last night. Their conversation is abruptly interrupted by Bauer, who asks if his partner has finished the system diagnostics. Reluctantly, the man steps out of the room and gets back to work, but the woman reappears behind him, clearly upset that he hasn't told Bauer anything about her, even though he promised he would. Feeling a flicker of guilt, the engineer promises to share everything soon. Bauer overhears the exchange and looks puzzled, unsure who his partner has been talking to. Not wanting to explain, the man buries himself in the life support diagnostics for the scientists asleep in the cryopods. When Bauer returns, he immediately senses that his partner has been communicating with someone from among the sleepers. With barely concealed irritation, he vents his frustration. He's tired of wasting his life on these sleeping scientists. He doubts the air will ever be safe to breathe. And while these people remain frozen in time, they're slowly losing their own lives taking care of them. He also can't understand why these scientists matter at all, especially that odd herpetologist on board. His partner patiently explains that the herpetologist specializes in reptiles and amphibians, and that these scientists are humanity's last hope. They're the final keepers of crucial knowledge without which mankind has no chance of rebuilding. But Bauer remains skeptical, unconvinced by the argument. Walking down the corridor, the engineer tries to convince Bauer that their work is critical, but Bauer isn't budging. After finishing his tasks, the engineer sits down to watch TV, while Cartwright digs into the records and calculations to figure out how long it'll take for the air to clear. Bauer, though, isn't interested in listening. He's glued to a program he's already seen dozens of times. Right after the game, the news segment begins, covering events that happened years ago. The anchor reports on multiple explosions around the world. According to their sources, some kind of hybrid nuclear chemical weapon was used, destroying Tel Aviv earlier that year. The engineer is outraged by Bauer's attitude but decides not to argue. With 17 minutes left in their wake cycle, he sets about mixing some sleeping cocktails. Leaving Bauer to prepare the concoctions, he heads to the bathroom with an adult magazine in hand. Once the systems check is complete and the capsules are powered back on, the engineer retreats to the supply room. That's when the hallucinations start again. He sees the young woman. Finishing the cocktails, the man returns to the main room, and suddenly notices one of the capsules sparking, then catching fire. With just 7 minutes left in their shift, he panics and yells for Bauer to get out immediately. Bauer bolts out with a fire extinguisher, and together they manage to put out the flames, but the capsule is ruined. Bauer flies into a rage, blaming his partner for not thoroughly checking the systems. At that moment, the lights go out and oxygen stops flowing. Their shift is over. Yet, to their surprise, they can still breathe. Going through the documents, they discover a backup air supply unit and decide to find it. Armed with a flashlight, they locate the emergency valve for electricity and oxygen, and open it. But nothing happens. The lights stay off, and breathing gets harder. Thinking they're about to die, Bauer confesses he once had a wife and 3 daughters. The program only accepted singles, but he lied. He never expected the end of the world to actually come. Everyone else is still up there, while he's trapped alive down here. Suddenly, The lights flicker on, the ventilation system kicks back in, and the timer resets. They have 2 more hours to fix the problems. Sifting through all the documents, they try to figure out how to repair the capsule and find the part storage. Bauer is furious. The bunker was clearly put together in a rush, with many things left unfinished. But his partner discovers another storage room on the bunker's blueprints. Taking a risk, they decide to check it out. To get there, though, they'll have to break the seal on their compartment. They know opening the hatch will release some oxygen and cut down their time, but they go ahead and open it anyway. As they walk through the new section, Bauer deliberately made strange noises to scare his partner. It cracked him up. They entered one of the rooms and searched it but found nothing. In the next room, they saw a bunch of different crates. The engineer spotted his imaginary girlfriend, Abby, near one of them and decided to check it out. Inside, they found the parts they needed. After grabbing everything, the men headed back to the main hall. After fixing the capsule, Bauer volunteered to test it. His buddy was against it since it was his own chamber, so he felt he should be the one to test it. But Bauer insisted, and the guy gave in. Bauer got into the capsule and noticed an oxygen leak. He asked Cartwright to check the compressor, and Cartwright left to inspect it. Suddenly, the capsule malfunctioned completely, and Bauer was gasping for air, on the verge of suffocation, until Cartwright rushed back and saved him, damaging the equipment even more in the process. Snapping back to reality, Bauer was furious that Cartwright took so long to come. He nearly choked to death. Cartwright said he had been nearby the whole time but couldn't find anything to cut the capsule's film. He also reminded Bauer that it was his idea to test someone else's chamber in the first place. With the second capsule now unusable, Bauer suggested freeing up space by killing one of the sleeping scientists so Cartwright could take that capsule. But his partner flat out refused to sacrifice an innocent life. They were hired specifically to protect the scientists. Bauer tried to convince him that this was their only way out, and eventually, Cartwright relented. They planned to inject one of the sleepers with a lethal dose of morphine. But at the last moment, Abby stopped Cartwright and suggested a different approach. Realizing how close he came to crossing a line, Cartwright proposed an alternative plan to Bauer. Bauer immediately shot down the idea, and a fight broke out between them. After exchanging punches, the engineer finally agreed to try a different tactic. Cartwright suggested heading to other sections to ask for help. Since other labs were still logging an activity, that meant people were alive there. Bauer hesitated. If they depressurized another section, they'd have even less time. But Cartwright was willing to take the risk. Suiting up in his protective gear, the man left their section to slip into the neighboring shelter, and almost immediately stumbled over a dead soldier's body. Moving deeper inside, he noticed a faint blue dust lingering in the air, the very toxic contaminant poisoning the atmosphere. After some searching, he found the sleeping quarters, but everything was dead silent. No power, no signs of life. Feeling the weight of defeat, he was about to give up when Abby suddenly appeared again, urging him to keep fighting. Just then, Bauer's voice came over the radio. He'd found a way around to the other section. Following Bauer's instructions, Cartwright crawled through the cramped ventilation shafts and was horrified to discover the bodies of others who hadn't made it. Reaching the target section by this bypass route, Cartwright found it utterly destroyed and its inhabitants long dead. Climbing out through a hole to the outside world, he saw a ruined city stretching into barren, lifeless wasteland. Returning to the wrecked section, the reality hit him. Everyone here had been dead for a long time. While trying to boost his radio signal, Bauer spotted a knife on a nearby table, the very one Cartwright had been searching for. Something about it didn't sit right, so Bauer decided to dig through the recordings. As Cartwright scanned the area, horror dawned on him. The entire system was a lie. Most likely, they were the only survivors. The activity logs from other sections? Just a cruel trick to keep the technicians from feeling alone. Meanwhile, Bauer reviewed the security footage and, with a bitter edge, saw that Cartwright had been right there during his near suffocation and had rushed to save him at the last moment. He realized he couldn't just walk away from all this. Back in the bunker, Cartwright confronted Bauer, who was now gripping the knife tightly. Bauer declared he'd watched the footage and knew the truth. Cartwright had tried to kill him. Cartwright pleaded, insisting Bauer had it all wrong and begged for a chance to explain. But Bauer was resolute, convinced Cartwright was dangerous, and refused to let him into the main section from the intermediate one. Knowing his suit was almost out of oxygen and that he was moments from suffocating, Cartwright made a desperate decision to find another way. Abby appeared once more, standing firmly by his side. Crawling through the ventilation shafts, Cartwright listens over the radio to Bauer's angry accusations and threats. Bauer is tracking him on the cameras, but at some point, he loses sight of his partner. Taking advantage, Cartwright navigates a back route through the vents and slips into their section. Relieved, he decides to return to the main hall, but suddenly, a gunshot cracks overhead. Bauer has found a pistol and is ready to settle the score. Cartwright ducks into cover and calls out loudly, apologizing and trying to calm him down, offering to make peace. Bauer refuses. Seizing a moment, Cartwright quietly sneaks past and heads back to the main hall. There, he inspects the medical cabinet, weighing his options. That's when Abby appears again. She urges him to kill Bauer before Bauer kills him, but Cartwright isn't willing to give up hope. He believes there's still a way to fix this. Suddenly, another shot rings out. Bauer shoots Cartwright in the shoulder. A fierce struggle breaks out. Cartwright shoves Bauer away and bolts into the cryo chamber room. A small slip of paper falls from his pocket. Bauer picks it up. It's a photo of Abby lying among the sleepers in the cryopods. Bauer tracks down Abby and threatens to kill her if Cartwright doesn't surrender. With no other choice, Cartwright outsmarts him and injects Bauer with a lethal dose of morphine. Realizing it's the end, Bauer accepts his fate, saying goodbye before slipping into unconsciousness. 5 minutes later, the power and oxygen cut out again. Left alone, Cartwright heads for his cryopod. After what feels like an eternity, the surface air finally becomes breathable again. The system automatically wakes everyone from cryosleep. Cartwright, aged and worn, stirs awake with the others, and spots Abby among them. Do you think a person can hold on to their humanity when they're completely isolated and all alone? Share your thoughts in the comments down below, give a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next videos.